Welcome to Talk Across America. I'm Doug Miles, and we're here in beautiful Sarasota, Florida. Joining us now on our Artist Spotlight, great to welcome, man. Very talented man, has a very interesting job as well. If you've ever been to a Broadway show or any kind of musical show, you might wonder, how do the musicians get there? Well, this man does that. He's a music coordinator for over 100 Broadway shows. He's a great musician in his own right, and we're going to be talking about that and his CD. This is the actually 10th anniversary of a very great CD called John Miller Takes on Broadway, and we're joined by John today from up in New York City. John, good to talk with you. How are you?
Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, I grew up in Long Island, so how are things in the city today?
Bustling as always.
That's it, yeah. It's quite a place.
Yes.
Well, first of all, congratulations on the CD. It came out, I guess, originally in 2008, and this is kind of an updated reissue of it. Were there any changes
Correct.
from the original, or is this the actual recording from that?
This is the actual recording. I was very pleased with how it came out, 2008, so nothing has been altered whatsoever.
And again, for people not aware, it features great songs from Broadway, obviously. That's the title of it. Shows like My Fair Lady and Showboat, Guys and Dolls. You really picked some songs that even if people never saw the show or the movie, you're going to probably recognize them if you just heard them on the radio in the past.
Well, they certainly are deep in all of our gene pool. There's no question about that.
How did you decide on the song? Obviously, when you pick from the Broadway songbook, there's so many things to choose from. Obviously, you picked some big hits, but any particular reason you picked any particular song?
Well, you give me much too much credit to believe that I carefully thought this out. You know, most people I know, when they're going to be doing their own CDs, and not even people who I know, most people have a real game plan. You know, what songs do they want to do? What's the mood of the CD that they want to do? So there's a real, very well thought out concept. I had no concept whatsoever. These songs all came from late night coming home after having either been schlepping my bass around town or doing some music coordinating business, and I come home late at night. My wife Connie and our dog Doodle are asleep, and I'm wide awake. So, most musicians I know also play other instruments for a hobby.
Right.
I know an oboe player who plays the bagpipe. I know a great French horn player who's a very good jazz pianist. With me, it's playing the guitar. So I come home late at night. I turn on to watch a basketball game or some boy movie, and I sit and I'm holding my guitar and I'm just grooving on a couple of chords with no agenda whatsoever, more focused in on the basketball game. And after maybe, it could be as long as 40 minutes playing two chords, all of a sudden I find myself singing out of the deep, inner bowels. I hear this voice coming out of me that goes, all I want is a room somewhere. Those two chords just somehow led me to Wouldn't It Be Lovely, and that's exactly how all of these tunes came about. There was no agenda of let me do an album of Broadway show tunes. I wish I had thought it out as intelligently as that. I did not.
Well, I think it's the way you described it. It comes organically. That's even more interesting in a way, rather than just the concept of these songs have to mean something in order, but it came out of you organically, which was interesting.
It certainly did come out of me organically. And as someone who's like a professional bass player, I'm not a professional guitar player, and I'm certainly not a professional singer. So when I open up my mouth, that's what comes out. And the fact that I'm somewhat limited on the guitar, I had no kind of constraints. So with that limitation, I'm utterly, completely free because I really don't know what I'm doing.
Well, that's true art, though, isn't it?
Well, maybe you're giving me too much credit, but it certainly is very freeing.
Yeah.
And the good news is what comes out, certainly with the guitar playing, is something that sounds damn good.
Now, you've been part of so many shows. I just want to kind of let the audience know, were some of these songs, did you play in any of the orchestra pits for productions of some of these songs, or never?
None.
None. Okay.
I don't think any of them.
That's interesting.
I mean, I've never played in the orchestra pits except for subbing on a couple of shows,
right,
for filling in for some ailing friendly bass player who decided to call me. The only one I think was I'd worked considerably with Cy Coleman, so I knew the song, the one from Little Me,
Real Life Girl. Yeah.
But it's interesting because when I played my version for Cy, the song is written in 3/4, sort of as a waltz.
Right.
Pardon me, miss, but I've never done this. So I played it to Cy the only way I knew how to play it which is sort of like a sort of like Quaalude bossa relax groove. Pardon me, miss, but I've never done this. And I remember playing it for Cy, and I said to myself, oh man, I don't know. He's going to say, how could you bastardize my song? You've ruined it. I'll never let you do it. But he had a big grin on his face. He said, man, I love where you put that. And I remember saying to Cy, a sign of a terrific tune just might be that it could go into different time signatures. I just last night played with a wonderful guitar player named Sean Harkness, who did My Favorite Things, which is a waltz, and he put it in 4/4, and it was just a great groove, and it makes you realize that maybe some of these great songs can go in different time signatures.
I was going to say, these types of become standards are interpretive. You can kind of go any way you want with them. That's what makes them great songs.
Well said.
Right? Yeah, right.
Well said.
Yeah. Occasionally I come up with one.
There you go.
Stage Door Johnny, John Miller Takes on Broadway is the full name of the CD. I did want to ask you, though, and I've always found it interesting. Again, I grew up in Long Island and attended as many shows as we could growing up over the years in New York City. I always kind of wondered how those pit orchestras were put together, and you're the guy that kind of does that, right? You coordinate all the music for a lot of shows. Interesting job.
I think when an audience member goes to see a show, whether it's on Broadway or in Ottumwa, Iowa, I think they have sort of some idea that the performers up on stage auditioned, and the director and the choreographer chose the people who they thought were the best suited for the show. But they auditioned, and there was the process of having agents who submitted them for work. Well, us musicians, we have no agents. Right. We don't have people whose job it is to make money off of trying to find us work. And and we don't audition for Broadway shows. So it's always fascinated me, how did those people get there? Well, they got there in the process of either one person or a group of people deciding who would be the perfect players for this style of music to work with this conductor, who play well with each other, and that's pretty much how players are decided on when anyone goes to see a show, no matter where that show happens to be.
Right. So you must have people calling you all the time.
Well, everybody's. Look, what do musicians want? Musicians want what all freelance people want. Musicians want the phone to ring.
Sure.
As a bass player, I want the phone to ring, and so we like it when the phone rings, and it's tough when the phone does not ring.
Yeah.
So in the world of enlightened self-interest, when musicians, know that there's someone who is deep in the loop with, how musicians get hired for different work, why shouldn't they try to make contact with that person? Who could blame them?
Sure.
So does a phone ring? Are there lots of emails? Are there lots of text messages? Absolutely, and why shouldn't there be? I get emails from people in high school saying my goal is to play a Broadway show. Any suggestions? So that comes with the territory. And one of the best parts of the musical coordinating side of my life is to be able to give deserving work to deserving players, and consequently, one of the really most painful parts of it, and it is painful to me, is not to be able to give work to how many more deserving players there are out there.
Yeah, I was going to ask what the status is today of Broadway with the musicians and all that. I know it goes through stages. I know Broadway, but there are shows that have fewer musicians. There are different types of music. How is it today?
Well, regardless of how it changes, shows need musicians. Maybe some of them less than they used to,
right.
But shows need musicians. Shows need really good musicians, and there are plenty of good musicians all across the country.
So it's doing okay. From the music standpoint, then?
Well, let's put it this way. From the standpoint of audiences wanting to come to see Broadway shows, it's very, very alive,
right.
And doing very, very well.
Right, great.
So as long as people are coming to see shows, musicians are going to be hired.
And before we wrap up, John has worked with so many great artists as a bassist, as we mentioned. A couple names people recognize: Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett. So you've worked with some of the greats.
Well, it's always a joy when people who you've admired as a kid, when all of a sudden you find that you're making music with some of your heroes. It's a wonderful, heartwarming experience to have, and hopefully I'll have many more, and hopefully many more of my friends and other musicians will have those same experiences also, because when the phone rings, we have no idea who's on the other end.
That's right. And Tony's still getting it done. He's coming down our way, John, sometime later this year. I believe he's 92 now, so God bless him. He's still doing it.
God bless him, and I urge everyone to go see him. It's a wonderful experience, and he makes sitting in the audience, hearing him sing, I Left My Heart in San Francisco, like he's singing it for the first time, that's a true artist.
Amazing. We want people to get out and get this CD called John Miller Takes on Broadway, Stage Door Johnny, 12 of the really classic Broadway songs in a little bit of a different way, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I know you'll enjoy just John's take on it. And John, a real pleasure talking to you. Hopefully we can do it again down the road. If you ever head down to Florida, please look us up. But if I get up to New York, I'll do the same up there. But thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me, and look forward to us connecting again down the pike.
Thank you for joining us today on Talk Across America. Please visit our website at dougmilesmedia.com for more great interviews and content. And if you're interested in any of the books we talk about on the program, please click the Amazon link on our website. It helps support the podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again real soon here from beautiful Sarasota, Florida.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America, isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.